The Fairy and the Frog presents the Astrology Edition. Now, let's get started. When people hear the word astrology, they often think of predictions or personality labels. But historically, astrology was a way of observing cycles, seasons, planets, and time itself. Before astrology was personal, before horoscopes, before belief, it was observational. It began not as mysticism, but as memory. Long before telescopes or clocks, human beings looked up and realized the sky moved with patterns that could be measured, tracked, and remembered. This is where astrology begins. Astrology doesn't tell you what will happen. It describes conditions. Early civilizations did not separate science, timekeeping, and meaning. They lived inside nature, not apart from it. The sky became humanity's first calendar. The stars marked seasons. The sun told them when to plant. The moon tracked tides, fertility, and time itself. Patterns in the heavens meant survival on Earth. Astrology, in its earliest form, was not about prediction. It was about orientation. Where are we in time? What cycle are we in? What repeats? The earliest structured astrology comes from ancient Mesopotamia, specifically Babylon, where civilizations along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carefully observed the sky. They weren't doing this for entertainment. They were doing it for agriculture, governance, and survival. Here, the sky was observed with discipline. Priests and astronomer scribes recorded the movements of the planets on clay tablets. Over centuries, they noticed something remarkable. The wandering stars, what we now call planets, moved in regular, repeating paths against the fixed stars. These movements correlated with seasonal shifts, floods, droughts, and social events. Astrology here was collective, not personal. It asked questions like, what cycle is the kingdom in? And, what does this planetary pattern suggest about stability or change? From this civilization came the earliest zodiac, a division of the sky into symbolic regions to track repeating celestial motion. Not meaning imposed on the sky, meaning inferred from repetition. Later, Egyptian astronomy helped refine seasonal timing, especially around the flooding of the Nile. In ancient Egypt, the sky was not only observed, it was mirrored. The Egyptians believed the universe operated by Ma'at, cosmic order, balance, and harmony. They watched the rising of specific stars, called decans, to mark hours of the night and seasons of the year. One star in particular, Sirius, rose just before the annual flooding of the Nile. This event meant renewal, fertility, life returning. The heavens were not separate from Earth. They were synchronized with it. Astrology here was cyclical, not fatalistic. What happens above echoes below. The Greeks then inherited these systems and added philosophy, geometry, and symbolic interpretation, forming much of what we recognize today as Western astrology. Across cultures, the sky was treated like a clock and calendar, not a belief system. Astrology and astronomy were once the same thing. The split between science and symbolism came much later. When astrology reached ancient Greece, something shifted. Greek thinkers inherited centuries of observation and asked a new question. What if the sky doesn't only describe seasons, but temperament? Here, astrology turned inward. The idea of the birth chart emerged, a snapshot of the sky at the moment of birth, not as destiny, but as a symbolic map. Greek astrology blended astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy. It explored character, inclination, and potential. Not this will happen, but this is the pattern you're born into. This is the foundation of modern Western astrology. Across these civilizations, one theme remains constant. Astrology began as pattern recognition. Cycles, rhythms, recurrence. The same impulse that drives modern science, observe, measure, compare, drove early astrology. What astrology added was symbolism, a language for describing human experience through natural cycles. Not superstition, but metaphor rooted in observation. When people hear the word astrology, they often picture horoscopes, predictions, or personality labels. For some, it feels intriguing. For others, it feels dismissible. But historically, astrology wasn't about belief in the modern sense. It was about observation. Long before telescopes or digital calendars, humans watched the sky because their survival depended on it. Seasons mattered, timing mattered, patterns mattered. So in this video series, we're not here to convince anyone of anything. We're simply going to look at what astrology actually is, where it came from, and why it has lasted so long. You don't need prior knowledge, and you don't need to believe anything to follow along. Let's start by clearing a few things up. Astrology is not fortune-telling. It doesn't tell you exactly what will happen or when. It's also not fate. Astrology doesn't remove free will, choice, or responsibility. And it's not a set of rigid personality boxes where your birth sign defines who you are forever. Those ideas are modern simplifications. Historically, astrology functioned more like a weather report than a rulebook. It described conditions, tendencies, and timing, not guarantees. A forecast doesn't force rain. It just tells you what kind of environment you might be moving through. At its core, astrology is a symbolic language built around cycles. It's based on the relationship between the Earth, the Sun, the Moon, and the visible planets, as they appear to move through the sky over time. From Earth, the sky looks different depending on the season. The sun rises in different places. The length of day changes. Stars appear and disappear throughout the year. Early humans noticed that these changes correlated with things happening on Earth: planting and harvesting, flooding and drought, migration, birth, and death. Astrology emerged as a way to track time and meaning together. Not just what time it was, but what kind of time it was. One of the most misunderstood parts of astrology is the zodiac. The zodiac is not a collection of personalities. It's a circle. Specifically, it's a circle representing the sun's apparent path through the sky over the course of a year, as seen from Earth. That circle is divided into 12 equal sections, which we call zodiac signs. Each section corresponds roughly to a seasonal phase. For example, Aries begins at the start of spring. Cancer aligns with the height of summer. Libra marks the balance point of autumn. Capricorn begins at the depth of winter. Seen this way, the zodiac describes how energy unfolds through the year, from emergence to growth, to harvest, to rest. The signs are symbolic expressions of these seasonal phases. They describe processes, not personalities. Humans are pattern-recognizing creatures. We notice rhythms in nature, in our bodies, in societies, and in our own lives. Remember, astrology gave early civilizations a way to coordinate planting and harvesting plan, rituals and governance, understand cycles of growth and decline. It offered a shared language for time and change. In a world without clocks, astrology helped people orient themselves within larger cycles. Even now, we still live in cycles. We experience periods of growth and contraction, activity and rest, beginnings and endings. Astrology remains compelling because it mirrors these lived experiences. It doesn't create meaning, it names it. For many people, astrology functions as a reflective tool, a way to think about timing, tendencies, and patterns, both personal and collective, not as certainty, but as context. Astrology did not begin as belief. It began as attention, a record of humanity learning to locate itself within time. Whether one views astrology as symbolic, psychological, or historical, its origin remains the same. Human beings noticing that the universe moves in patterns, and so do we. So astrology at its foundation is a system of observation, a symbolic map of cycles, seasons, and time. In the next videos, we'll explore the zodiac through the 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire, to see how these symbolic patterns express themselves in different ways. You don't need to memorize anything or approach this with belief. Just curiosity. If you're interested in how ancient systems of knowledge connect with the natural world and modern life, you're in the right place. This is only the beginning. Join us next as the story continues.